Hey guys! So, in this video we are going to talk about your applications, the stuff that you're building and whether or not they're good or not. So let's get into it. Now, I want to touch on something that I think is fairly important, especially if you are like me, you're the sort of person who feels like it's never really good enough. What you're doing is never really good enough. And you do micro adjustments and you ask yourself, is this perfect? Is it absolutely flawless? Well, let's be honest, I used to be that way. Today, I'm a little bit more ad hoc than that, and I'll tell you why. You see, it used to be the case that I had this mental picture of what is a good application, rather what's high quality, what's something good. And the thing about having this mental image of what something good is that you associate it with something that you are already using. Now, this is a little bit of a sickness in our industry, especially when it comes to certain users, because trust me when I say users are super picky on average with their applications. And the reason, if you ask me about what I think, is because they're spoiled. You are. It's okay. I mean, you don't know that you're spoiled. You just are, and you don't get it, and that's so cute, because the only reason you don't know is because you don't understand how much work goes in to building that thing that you take for granted. I'll give you an example. One of the most common things that you will face as a software developer, especially if you're working at any of just an average software company, is that if you show your work, on average, I'm not saying this is always the case, but if you show your work to other people, they will not appreciate that work as much as they appreciate something that comes from, say, Facebook or Google or one of those companies. And you see, the reason is because let's remember this, you and I and everybody else, we live in the big companies' world, basically, when it comes to software development. Almost every single person you meet have a connection to one of these main companies in some way, and that is why they have a little bit of a situation politically. They are trying to figure out a way to hide the fact that they basically own the world, or rather the internet, and therefore, well, not the entire world, but you kind of get my drift. You see, the average user, that person's perspective on what quality is associated with these brands. And you see, the difference between you and these brands is that they have more money than God. And you don't. Your company does not. So, if you start thinking about that, your first reaction may be, damn, how can I ever get one of my projects off the ground and start making some money, or like making my own business, if that's the benchmark? That's a great question. How could anybody make any type of software worth anybody else's time if the benchmark is that you literally have to have one of the biggest companies in the world funding you in order to get to that level of quality? Well, as I hope you realize, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And this is what I will suggest to you. What if quality didn't matter? Just hear me out. I know that's a controversial thought, but what if quality didn't matter so much? What if your assumption that what is good is very subjective, and it's not really about what's good, but rather what works and what works well? Let me walk you through it. So, when you start a new idea of some sort, in my personal opinion, there's generally one of two ways that you can go. You can either produce or focus a lot on the user value, the thing that you're making is actually producing for the company or for the user or whoever your stakeholders are. Or you can go for design, user experience, you can go for all these things. Now, you're going to do both, but we're talking about a focus area here. So, think about it this way. What if your user... What if your user... I almost got ran over there. Anywho, what if your user didn't care so much about your color scheme being perfect, or that your buttons were perfectly shaped and like the fonts were perfect? What if they didn't care so much about that? What if the thing that you built had value because the thing it's doing is actually really good? I'll give you a great example. Craigslist. That's a really ugly application, in my opinion. I hope that the designers who may be watching this can agree on that, but it's very popular. Have you used Amazon's interfaces? Well, from a design perspective, I would say that Amazon isn't really a nice website. Maybe it is. I'm not an expert in these things, but it's damn popular. It's one of the biggest, strongest brands in the world. What if you went with the same mindset? What if you kind of accepted this idea that the sensation of quality that is associated with your project is very subjective? And that's when you start learning about what we call early adopters. What is an early adopter? Well, my friend, I'm glad you asked. You see, an early adopter is a person who has a vested interest in the success of your company. What does that mean? Well, in the context of this discussion, it means that that person is looking for a solution that you are solving, or that you are providing. The average user is going to pick a product not necessarily because they are looking for it. They have to be educated to understanding the value it has. I mean, remember that Facebook, like all that application, it didn't start off popular. The reason why it became popular was that there was a small group of people in the beginning who had, as we call it, a vested interest. They were looking for a solution such as Facebook. And their interest in that project was where it started. It started out with just a few users that were really looking for this perfect solution that Facebook was providing. And when they, as the early adopters, got interested and started using the application, more and more people were added on because of the development of the project. So, if you think about that, that means that your goal when you start a new project should not be to create something that just on day one is mass consumable. It's not, your focus should not be to create a project that every single person is going to be interested in using. Your goal is to figure out who your early adopter is. What type of person are you solving a problem for? Focus on that one person type, archetype, if you will, of person, that profile, and solve the problem for them as well as you can. Because the early adopters are the people who are going to be the first people to use your application. And from learning things about them, you can actually evolve your project over time. Because remember, Facebook didn't build their perfect user experience in one day. They created something that was designed for early adopters. In other words, people who really need this thing. Because an early adopter is okay with not having a perfect interface or perfect user experience or everything being perfect, because the value of the thing that you are doing for them is so high that they want to use it, even if there are bugs, even if your project isn't all that great, because you're doing something that they find very, very useful. And if you cater to these people, that's the best way for you to get some users, get some user feedback, and maybe some revenue even, and start thinking about how you can make it mass consumable over time. That's a strategy that works very, very well. Have a great day.